Mr. Truck here from Detroit. We're out here on a nice hot day, eating barbecue, checking out the new trucks. So hopefully today's the day that Ford's going to tell us what the 2020 7.3 gas engine has for power. Maybe some towing numbers. I'm sitting right here, got the 600, that new midline heavy duty that's four-wheel drive. Kind of fills the whole segment in for having something for everybody. And we got the Tremor behind me, that new four-wheel drive off-road truck in the heavy-duty series with diesel and gas engines and 10 speeds. So hopefully today we'll get some towing numbers, some horsepower numbers, and all those things we've been waiting for since January. So come join us.
Mr. Truck here with another exciting trailer accessory review. This one's for your gooseneck trailer. It's from Gen Y Hitches. It's called the Cushion Surge Coupler, Torsion Flex. So it's kind of like a torsion axle on a horse trailer. And that, inside here are those torsions. And so as this thing flexes, those will move up and down.
Gen Y hitches. All you have to do is look at them. They're built like a bulldozer. It's all heavy-duty plate metal. Make them adjustable hitches, pencil hitches, shock-absorbing hitches with torsion, like a torsion axle on a horse trailer. These things will last you forever. You cannot find a better built adjustable hitch.
On this new 600 medium duty, we're also going to get some news about that PTO shaft that comes out each end and how that's used. So we'll have all the information on that on the last truck that they brought into the medium duty sector, that's 600, which is available in four-wheel drive. Of course, it's a cab and chassis.
Or the diesel and the transmission. The rest of the power and capability numbers will be coming in the next few months. Hand it over to Joel Beltramo. He's the gas V8 engine manager.
Good afternoon. So Ford is the only manufacturer that designs, engineers, and builds its own engines and transmissions for commercial vehicles. Helping each of the powertrains be optimized for how it's calibrated in vehicle, to give seamless function for all of our customers. And so the other benefit we get with this is if you think on the service side, you have a consistent service approach for all the range of vehicles that we sell. So there's one sure path for service, and that's through the Ford service and dealers. It's been more than 20 years since Ford introduced an all-new gasoline heavy-duty engine. Here today with the 7.3, it's now the most powerful gasoline Super Duty engine ever, and this is going to help take our gasoline towing and hauling capability to a new level. It starts with a cam and block architecture, and that architecture is designed to bridge the gap between the smaller displacement gasoline engines that have been in the market and the high capacity turbo diesels. The engine's really for the customers that they need the strong towing, but not quite enough to step up to turbo diesel with a higher investment. It strikes the right balance with higher torque at low engine speeds than overhead cam engine normally delivers. And at the same time, that gives excellent pulling power in all the gears. And it's compatible from the F250 Super Duty to the F650 Medium Duty. This is a great advantage for our fleet customers. This greatly commonizes and simplifies the service of the engines for our large, diverse fleet that we support. The 7.3 can also be converted to run on natural gas, so that helps mitigate the risk for rising fuel costs in the future. The 7.3 was based on the design work was based on our deep knowledge of what the commercial customers need. We've got years of experience with them, and they really, when they came to us, we're talking about accessible power for everyday usage, mechanical simplicity. They also wanted a compact package, so it's easy to work on. And above all, it's got to have long-term durability. It's got to bring overall efficiency to their fleet. The good news is that all of our retail customers really want the same things if you look at how our Super Duty customers use the vehicles. Since we showed the 7.3 back in January, we've continued to drive forward on delivering on its capability and durability. Our Windsor engine plant, where we're going to build these engines, is an all-new plant, and so making sure everything's ready for production is a key step in the process of delivering an engine. Windsor has built hundreds of engines down their production lines. We consider them pre-production engines. Some we literally just take and recycle. Others go through full durability testing. And when we talk about durability testing, we expect our production engines to pass all the same durability tests that our hand-built prototypes can pass. So when we talk about our engine fatigue test, where we exhaustively run the engine, the production engines routinely pass that. When you talk about like a thermal shock test, our production engines pass that just like our prototypes could. The same with a global systems test that we run that really replicates how our tough customers run their vehicles, and it's much more aligned with a vehicle usage profile rather than accelerated wear that our other tests push the engine through. Now today, when we introduced the engine, we said it would be the most powerful engine in Super Duty to come out from the gasoline side. And today we're proud to announce the 7.3 gas engine Super Duty pickups will deliver best-in-class horsepower and torque. And so when we look at the engine that will go into F-250 and 350, so that's complete pickup trucks. We call them chassis third engines. And the engine will be delivering 430 horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 475 pound-feet at 4,000 RPM. So it's best in class for both those values. Our dyno certified engines, so those are the engines that go in our incomplete chassis cabs. They go in vehicles up through F650 and 750, E-Series, and also we sell strip chassis that get turned into delivery vans and motorhomes. That engine will be rated at 468 pound-feet of torque at 3,900 RPM. It can make similar 350 horse at that speed. So very, very strong performance from the engine. But along with these peak power numbers, this engine brings a wealth of gasoline-fueled torque from very low RPM. So it's not just about the peak numbers, it's about what it can do across the RPM range. So today, we brought a few parts with us to kind of walk you through some of the durability things that we've talked about in the past about how this engine's overbuilt. It's really a tough truck engine. As we look at, first up, this is a forged steel crankshaft. Couple things to set the stage for this though is this engine, or this group of parts, have come from two engines specifically that ran durability testing. Some of the parts came from what we call our engine fatigue test. That's a test where we run extensive amounts of time at peak torque and peak power, far longer, far harder than you could ever do in a real vehicle. And for those parts, the tests that were run represent more than the duty cycle, our 90th percentile customers could have in our heaviest vehicle at full useful life. Okay, so this is truly what should be end-of-life parts for a customer vehicle. Then the other parts are from an engine that we ran in dynamometer, then it was migrated into a vehicle. We continued with testing, running basically durability test after durability test. We just kept running it. Total time on the engine exceeded 3,200 hours. So you can take a guess, if you're running 24 hours a day, that's not something you got done in a few months. That is a very, very long, very hard test. And those tests across the 3,200 hours were not only engine dynamometer based, but they were things like Davis Dam, Max GCW, hot weather simulations, and all the way to some other things that we don't always think about every day when we talk about tough usage. The engine was exposed to very low temperatures in the vehicle, doing very long sustained idles, because that's one of the things that emergency vehicles have to do in the northern states in Canada. And so, as I started with the crankshaft, this crankshaft is actually out of the engine with 3,200 plus hours on it. And as you look at it, it's a forged steel crank, very close to what we'd use in a diesel engine, very large bearing diameters for both the mains and the rod bearings. And if you come closer and look at it after the presentation, what you're going to see is there's virtually no visible wear on the crank after 3,200 hours of testing. So it starts to give you an idea the bottom end in this engine is pretty special. I mentioned the engine fatigue test that represents full useful life, 90th percentile customer for our heaviest vehicle. Well, this main bearing cap and bearing shell is out of that one of those engines after that full test has been completed. And at this point, when you look, you're going to see virtually no wear on that main bearing shell. What that pretty much says is the bottom end of this engine, crank, bearings, you'll look at it and go, this could run another full vehicle life simulation. That's how overbuilt the bottom end is. When you look at the piston and rod assembly, this is actually getting out of the engine more than 3,200 hours. You'll see very little wear on the rod bearing. You'll see a little scuffing bedding in on the skirt coating. The rings have virtually no wear. And that's quite unusual for a gas engine with that kind of time on it. And what it really comes from is Ford invested in the better materials that we developed on our turbocharged engines. We put them in this engine. We wanted this engine to last a very long time, even though it's naturally aspirated. So there's coatings on the rings from a turbocharged engine, even though we're naturally aspirated. Bearing materials, rod design, everything comes from everything we've learned from our turbo diesels and our turbo gas engines. So very, very strong on durability. Just as a comparator, these rod bearing shells are actually out of the engine that ran the engine fatigue test. So more time at peak power and peak torque than you would typically experience in a full life of our heaviest vehicles. And once again, you'll see some polishing, a couple minor scratches, but no significant wear. There's a lot of talk about us reverting, for this large engine to cam and block. Early on in January, I mentioned we did something special. We had some special tappets in it and other things for extreme durability that we expected our customers to want. And first up is a rocker arm. It's a cast steel arm, not a stamping. And if you look closely at it, you'll see where it runs on the valve after over 3,000 hours. There's slight polishing, no real signs of wear. At the other end where the push rod runs in the socket, once again, there's a little polishing, no significant wear. This is the push rod that was mated up to that particular rocker arm in the engine. There's polishing on the end, the balls where the contact is. So that's the inside of the engine. Once again, the materials help, but there's a couple of other things that are a little bit unique about this engine that help make the wear so low in these areas. As an example, we run Ford-specific tappets that run on the camshaft. And we talked about the special carbon nitride roller bearings we use that our competition doesn't. Well, something else that we did is we dramatically increased the oil flow to the overhead for the valve train beyond what's the industry norm for these tappets. And so when we send more oil up here, we're putting the oil directly to these wear surfaces. And then the rocker arm's actually designed such that the oil can come out of the top, and there's channels that carry it over and carry oil at low engine speeds over to the valve interface. So fundamentally, that helps with durability. So that's a little bit, there's some things beyond materials that are level of engineering that helps give us better durability than engines of the past can. The water pump is kind of a simple external part on an engine. And the reason why we actually picked this part for here today is there's a couple subtle things in it. First off, the bearing that's actually in this is straight out of our turbo diesel 6.7. The whys I'll get to in just a moment, but you'll also notice there's all this heavy ribbing. And so if you compare that to other water pumps you're used to seeing in cam and block engines, go, what are they doing? Well, the reality is Ford sells a lot of engines for very tough usage where the first stop on the vehicle is actually an upfitter. And the upfitters add other content to the vehicle for special usages. And we know a number of these upfitters, those vehicles end up living off-road. So it's not like running down the nice smooth roads we have in Michigan. We're talking, very severe off-road usages. And for that, that's why we have the bearing with the extra capacity, the big ribs in the pump. It's not for your everyday commercial truck usage. It's for the higher percentile, really tough truck usages the 7.3 will see. Overall, I've been asked, well, how long will this engine last? We know it's designed to go the distance for our Super Duty customers, our commercial truck users, and the high mileage they expect to run their vehicles. I've been challenged about, gee, can you figure out a B10 life? The reality is, as we look at the parts, you can see there's so little wear. We know it'll go way beyond expectations, but because the wear is so low, it's very hard to predict just how long it will last. Because quite a number of these parts, you can look with your own eyes. You put them back in a new build, and it'll go a whole nother durability test. So, a lot of people go, well, isn't that overbuilt? From our point of view, we think this is really what our customers expect from a built Ford Tough truck engine. Thank you. And now we're going to move over to 6.7 and Anita.
Hello, welcome today. I'm Anita Bursey. I am the base engine system supervisor for the 6.7 liter engine. Since 2011, the 6.7 liter Power Stroke has been an absolute benchmark for the industry and one of the most trusted names in heavy-duty truck engines, and for good reason. The Power Stroke name has been in use with our V8 diesels since 1994, and we have over 1 million engines on the road of the 6.7 liter Scorpion at this time. Ford's in-house designed and built Scorpion diesel was introduced first in the 2011 model year. The Ford engineering team has continued to enhance and refine the Scorpion engine ever since its inception, with performance, reliability, fuel economy, and NVH refinement as our top priorities. The third major upgrade to the architecture provided the team with a great opportunity to significantly move the needle on the Scorpion diesel. Awe-inspiring power and day-in, day-out dependability that results in the kind of customer loyalty that is the reward for our hard work. The third generation of this innovative engine is the best yet and will deliver the most powerful diesel engine for Ford, thanks to purpose-driven changes to its hardware. The base architecture remains the same, a 90-degree V8 configuration, and we continue to put our unique inboard exhaust design to help manage heat under loads. Some of the major changes to our engine include a new, more efficient turbocharger for this engine. We also have a variable displacement oil pump, which allows us to operate at high oil pressures when we're in our most high usage, when it's under the most load, but back off on the oil and get some friction savings when you're on light loads. Additionally, we've updated our fuel system for improved combustion. It's a 2,500 bar system. So the pump, the rails, the injectors have all been optimized for that higher pressure system. We have a beefed up cylinder head, cylinder block, connecting rods, bearings, and we've moved now to a steel piston design to take the high combustion pressures of the new power and torque levels that this engine will deliver. And finally, we've added a larger oil cooler so that we can have improved towing performance in hot weather conditions. I brought with me a selection of parts today to demonstrate what we've upgraded in the engine. So let me step around here. Comparing both the current model to the new 2020. So first off, you'll notice that we have a new one-piece forged steel piston. This steel piston design allows us to have a compact design. You'll notice our ring lands are much tighter with each other. That's because of the strength they bring with them. In addition, our piston pin has gotten smaller, even though it has to take heavier loads. Again, making use of that strength of the steel. Our ring pack in this is one of the lowest tension ring packs in the industry at this time, which gives us great friction for better fuel economy. If you look at our connecting rod, we have a best in the industry premium bearing material that's coupled with our piston pin with the shape and the coatings for the best wear performance possible.
What is it?
It is a
Bronze or?
It's a bronze material. Thank you. The other thing that we've done with our piston, you'll notice just with the steel itself, we've optimized the weight. You'll notice the openings in the skirt. We've only put the structure where we need it. In fact, when you put this assembly together, we're able to virtually match the same mass of the piston and rod assembly of the outgoing aluminum. To further enhance our steel piston, we've modified our piston squirter jets. We now have a split stream design, which will not only feed oil into the bottom of the piston, but also targets the small end of the rod and the underside of the crown where we have the most heat. So able to maintain good temperatures throughout that high performance along with that high combustion load. Another enhancement we've done to the engine is the variable displacement oil pump, which I mentioned before. So the outgoing current model is a gear rotor pump that's driven directly off of the crankshaft. And here you'll see our new variable displacement oil pump, which is actually gear driven from the crank and mounted below. You can see it in the engine buck over there. So with this pump, again, we have the high output when we need it for the heavy loads. We're able to back off of the pump performance when we don't need it to save that fuel economy. And finally, I want to talk about our new turbocharger design. I don't have a separate one here, but if you get a close-up look at the engine, you'll see it on our buck here. So this is a latest generation Garrett turbo design, and they take with them their industry knowledge of the heavy truck market, and they've applied all the best practices from those durable turbos to this one. One of the features we've incorporated from that knowledge is a dual axis vane, which allows us to run tighter clearances with those vanes for more efficiency in the turbo without giving up wear. Right? You want to run nice and tight, so everything's heating up and cooling down. So being able to support that vane very precisely is important for the turbo. Additionally, we've gone to a full electronic control of the turbocharger. This has a lot of benefits, one of which is better performance under extreme cold conditions. When you have a hydraulic turbo control and the cold conditions, you have to wait for that oil to warm up. With the electronic turbo, even in the cold conditions, we have great performance just driving away from the parking lot. The aero is all new on this turbo, so we have both new turbine and compressor side wheels. It helps us to optimize for the higher power output, and we're actually able to provide better fuel economy, all in a slightly smaller machine size. So the frame is actually a little bit smaller than the outgoing one with better performance on this turbo. So you see we've done a lot of things to this engine to really take it to the next level and make sure that it maintains that benchmark and that leadership that you've come to know out of the 6.7 liter, and we're really excited to bring it to you. So you can take a look at the parts after we're done. We'll be around for questions. And I'm going to hand it over to Greg now to talk about our transmissions. Thank you.
What about the turbo with the horsepower and torque?
Not yet.
Oh, jeez.
My name is Greg Stout. I'm the transmission system manager for this new 10-speed torque shift transmission for the Super Duty. So with this new 10-speed transmission, we've basically taken our formula from the F-150 10-speed, and we've expanded it into a new class, into the Super Duty class. So all of those advantages that you know from the F-150 10-speed are now going to be available and more apparent in the Super Duty, because the heavier the vehicle and the heavier the trailer, really the more the benefits of the 10-speed show. And I'll get into that in a minute. So this new torque speed transmission, 10-speed transmission, is based on the same power flow that we use on the F-150 transmission, but it's not at all the same transmission. The more capable Super Duty and the work needs of the Super Duty customer really drove the requirements for this transmission, which resulted in a much more capable and more robust transmission. So, for instance, only 7% of the parts in this transmission are common with the F-150 10-speed. And those are parts like little springs and valves in the control system that don't carry any torque. So to illustrate this a little bit, I've brought some parts from both the new Super Duty 10-speed and the F-150 10-speed. So here I have the input shaft from the F-150 and the input shaft from the Super Duty. And let me just hold it up for a sec. What's the difference in length? I mean, you can see there's a significant difference there, not only in diameter, but also in length. And that just goes to show the robustness. This is a beefier transmission by far, which is needed to handle the torque of the Super Duty engines. Likewise, with the output planetary set This is the F-150 output planetary set here. This is the same part on the Super Duty. You can see there's a significant difference. The gears are bigger, larger shafts. It's obviously designed for significantly more torque and a more robust duty cycle. So 7% common torque, common parts, and parts that carry torque have significant differences. These illustrate that story, but the same would be true as you walk through the entire transmission. So that's on the design side. On the testing side, there's also differences. The testing that we do to validate and prove out the durability of the Super Duty transmission is both tougher and lasts longer than what we use on our other transmission products. In fact, we've put more than 2.5 million miles of testing and development into this new transmission to make sure that it meets the requirements and expectations of our customers. One other thing we did to address durability on this transmission is we have a new oil formulation that we use in our auto trans fluid, and that allows us to have reduced parasitic losses while maintaining durability, and it also allows us to have or to maintain our best-in-class 150,000 mile fluid and filter change interval on this product. So I'd like to change gears a little bit and now talk a bit about the performance enhancements that this transmission gives to our new truck. So this transmission was designed from the get-go to fully support and take advantage of the power of our new gas and diesel engines that we've been talking about. And it was designed to handle the harshest trailer tow conditions and the huge trailer capability that this truck can deliver. The 10-speed offering that we have provides a great ratio span with optimal ratio spacing for the gears. A taller first gear means that we've got more torque for starting on a grade or starting with a trailer. And the 3 overdrive gears provide enhanced efficiency while cruising, allowing the engine to run at a lower RPM for better fuel economy. But the big story is really what we can do for powertrain matching. With our calibration, we can choose the right gear at the right time so that we can always complement the engine load and speeds. So what that allows us to do is to use this transmission to take full advantage of these powertrains so we can always keep the engine in the sweet spot. And that really makes a difference when you're driving the truck with a big trailer. It inspires confidence, it gives a much better user experience, and just is overall a better performance. So that's a real key advantage. I'd like to talk now a little bit about efficiency, because we took several different design actions to improve the efficiency of this transmission and help the overall fuel economy of the vehicle. So the first obvious thing is that going from 6 speeds to 10 speeds gives better fuel economy, those 3 overdrive gears that I was talking about. But it goes beyond that. Our power flow architecture that we're using, for any given gear setting, we only have 2 clutches that are in the off or dragging position. That's compared to 3 clutches in that position on the prior model year 6-speed. So that's a big efficiency gain right there. The other thing that we've done is on some of our clutches, we've implemented wavy springs, which are little springs that push the clutch plates apart when they're not engaged. And that helps reduce the drag between those plates and further enhances efficiency. We also specified a variable displacement oil pump for the transmission, very much like the pump on the diesel transmission that Anita just talked about. And that optimizes pump losses by only going to full displacement when the transmission needs it for that extra flow. Also, the new formulation oil helps with overall parasitic losses. So a couple other words around what we've done with this transmission. I'm quite proud of the design team because they were able to take 10 speeds and fit them into the same exact length as the outgoing 6-speed transmission. So this isn't any longer than the prior model year transmission, despite having an extra 4 speeds to fit in there. The other thing that the team was able to do is implement the full 10 speeds for only an additional 3.5 pounds over the outgoing 6-speed transmission. So that's fairly impressive. That'd be less than 1 pound per gear if you think about it. Pretty good deal. I'd like to talk now a little bit about the electronic controls. We use state-of-the-art electronic controls to control this transmission, and that enables us to offer several smart transmission features which our customers will appreciate. So the first thing is the calibration. We have a new control system, state-of-the-art control system with this transmission that allows for faster and smoother shifts, better gear selection, and also allows us to lock out the converter earlier so we can save some fuel in that regard as well. We are also offering an expanded selection of customer selectable drive modes. So while the prior model 6-speed had a normal mode and a tow haul mode, this transmission takes it further. And in addition to those two modes, now we're offering a slippery mode and an eco mode and a deep snow and sand mode. And then we offer yet another mode on the tremor over there. So,
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part? Eco mode, and you offer yet another.
yeah, there's one additional mode that's offered on the tremor.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, the off-road package. So just a little bit about those different modes. So as far as the tow haul mode goes, it operates pretty much the same as what our customers are used to. So what happens with that mode is when the driver is driving down a grade with a trailer, the transmission will downshift more aggressively to help slow the vehicle down. And that mode also gives the driver the opportunity to control the gears themselves. So if they want to control the exact gear selection, they can do that. This transmission works very much the same way that outgoing 6-speed does in this regards. So for the new modes, the eco mode, the idea is to promote fuel efficiency, and so what the transmission will do is react less aggressively to throttle and will get up into the upper gears quicker to encourage more efficient driving if the customer selects that mode. For the slippery mode, the idea is to promote safe driving on icy or slippery surfaces. So if the customer selects that mode, the idea is to control the wheel spin. And so again, the transmission and powertrain will react less aggressively to throttle in the slippery mode and also work in conjunction with the brake system to keep the wheel spin under control. Now the deep sand and snow mode is kind of the opposite of that. In that mode, what we want to do is give the operator the ability to power through difficult spots without getting the vehicle bogged down. And so in that mode, we actually want to encourage some wheel spin. And so the powertrain will react more aggressively to throttle inputs and will also work in conjunction with the analog brakes to allow more wheel spin so that the vehicle can power through those difficult spots without getting bogged down. Finally, there's another feature, another smart feature that we are offering to our commercial customers only, and this is another fuel saving feature. So on our commercial applications, when the vehicle comes up to a light and the operator puts on the brake and the vehicle is stationary, the transmission will automatically go into a neutral mode to lower the load on the engine and improve fuel. And then when the operator lifts off the brake, then the transmission will quickly and seamlessly resume drive mode, and as the throttle goes on, will take off in a normal manner. So this enhances efficiency, which reduces costs for our fleet operators, and that's important for that customer saving. All right.
And that's in all modes? You don't have to be in eco mode or whatever?
That's independent of the different modes on commercial vehicles only.
Okay.
And it only works under certain situations, like it won't work on a steep hill, for instance. You have to be on a relatively low-grade surface for that to take effect.
Why commercial only?
I'll take questions at the end. If you don't mind. All right, I want to talk a little bit about our power takeoff features on this transmission. So the power takeoff, as most of you probably are aware, is a feature that we offer for our commercial customers so that they can run snowplows, hydraulic units, pumps, bucket trucks, all that sort of thing that allow our customers to get their work done at the job site. So a couple of things that we're announcing today for this transmission. So beginning with the 2020 model year, with the 6.7 liter diesel in conjunction with the new 10-speed, we will be offering the power takeoff as standard on all of our commercial chassis cab vehicles. So that's going to be a valuable thing for our fleet operators. They won't have to remember to check that option box. And so the majority of those customers want PTO, and so they'll be getting that automatically. The PTO function will be available as an option still on the 7.3 liter gas engine. And we'll be talking in the future, not today, about PTO capability for our 6-speed transmissions for the coming model years for F650, 750, and strip chassis. The other thing that we're announcing today regarding the PTO capability is that we are expanding the capability of the PTO offering for the 2020 model year with the 6.7 liter diesel. So we will be offering a best-in-class figure of 300 foot-pounds at the PTO window in the stationary mode. So that's a 20% increase over the 19 model year, and that's 50 foot-pounds more than the closest competitor. And that's capability that our commercial customers and our PTO suppliers will put to good use by offering more capable systems that can do more work at the job site. So in order to facilitate that, we've done a few things to the design. This is not a PTO-equipped transmission here, but we made some modifications to the case. So we basically went from, we provided a stronger attachment for bigger PTO devices. So with the prior model year 6-speed, we offered a 6-bolt attachment pattern. We've moved that to a 10-bolt attachment pattern. We've widened the window so that larger PTO devices can be attached. And those functions, in combination with offering the extra 50 foot-pounds, will serve our work customers well. A couple other words on PTO. The 20 model year PTO offering will continue to offer the 3 operating modes that we offer now. So there's a stationary mode where with the 6.7 diesel, we provide up to 300 foot-pounds to the PTO window. There's a mobile mode which allows our live drive PTO to provide torque to the PTO while driving down the road. So if they need to operate that hydraulic unit between job sites, the customers are able to do that. And then we offer a third mode for those upfitters who want to take advantage of it that we call split shaft PTO. And in this scenario, rather than mounting the PTO on the side of the transmission, we offer our upfitters the opportunity to put a larger PTO between the transmission and the rear axle. So they split the drive shaft, and then they can put a larger PTO back there and take the full torque of the engine to that PTO. And I believe they offer sometimes 2 or 3 attachments back there under that situation. And then just a final word. One thing that Ford really values is our relationship with the aftermarket PTO suppliers. We work in conjunction with them up front to package space under the hood for their devices. And we work cooperatively with them to provide transmissions to them so they can test before the models hit the market. And we take their PTOs and put them on our vehicles and do testing before the vehicle goes on sale so we can be sure that the PTO suppliers and their products are robust and meet our customers' requirements. So that concludes my remarks. Thank you all for your attention.
Yes.
Why only commercial?
So that was discussed. The thought was that some of our retail customers perhaps wouldn't value that feature as much as the commercial customers, and so it was decided to only offer it to commercial.
Is that an expensive thing?
It's mostly software.
That's the neutral thing. What goes into neutral?
To go into neutral.
Why not just offer to the retail customers and brag about better fuel economy?
Well, that was a marketing decision, and in this
You didn't
case,
ask me.
Oh, those guys. Yeah. What's up with that?
they decided not
No.
to. Yeah.
Now the 6.
The 10-speed is standard with both engines in 250, 350, and I got a little bit confused when you were going through the 450 to 650. So
Okay, so yeah, the 10-speed transmission is standard on all 6.7 diesels. It's standard on all 7.3 gas, and it depends for the F250 with the entry-level gas engine. It depends on what the vehicle requirements are. So basically, there's a 6-speed that we currently offer on the Super Duty and some F250s that will be available still for some applications, but if we get to a pretty heavy towing package, they move up to this one. So
even
on
a 6.2?
F250, it depends.
The 6.2 can have either one of them.
Can have either one, that's
Okay.
correct.
And 450, 550, 650 is 10-speed?
Those would all be 10-speed
Right.
because I don't believe any of those have 6.2
I didn't think so.
engines.
I've got some notes that they're for engine, some that are for transmission. I want to make sure I'm not confusing.
Yeah, so the
Thank you very
transmission
much.
goes more with the engine than it goes with.
Yep.
But I think they're all 10 speeds once you get to 350 and above.
Excellent. Thank you very
Gear
much.
ratios for this 10-speed are identical to the light-duty 10-speed?
They're very similar to the F-150.
But they're
They're
not
not identical, but they're similar. So we're probably first or second decimal place, but they're very close. But this is a unique transmission. All the gears are different, right?
Bigger
They're
planetary,
cut
yeah.
slightly different, so it has the same architecture, but
You just ended up
they're
with
off.
different teeth
The
on
teeth
there,
are just
yeah.
a little different, and they're
Bigger
very
planetary.
similar, but they're a little different.
Any changes with the axle ratios with the vehicles, or are you restricting a 10-speed only with a 355? Or
So the transmission selection is more a function of engine than axle, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure that the axle ratio selection is pretty much the same for 20 model year as it is for 19.
So it might be
So if
restricted
someone's
to
used to
engine
getting, whatever, a 355 with their diesel, they probably can continue to get the same ratio.
When it slips into neutral, is that something you have to activate, or do it automatically if the conditions are right?
That's completely automatic if all the conditions are met. Yeah, and again, that's only on, I believe, chassis cab.
And they don't do
conditions.
auto start-stop, so it's kind of like
That's correct. It's
auto
like
start-stop for
it's their
transmissions.
version of
it's sort of like a not quite as intrusive version of an auto start-stop. It's just it goes into neutral and then back into drive.
Is there anything exciting about the torque converter? You didn't mention that at all.
I didn't mention the torque converter. The torque converter is a new design. There is a difference between the gas and the diesel torque converters. They have about the same K-factor curve, but the diesel one is a little beefier to handle the extra torque from the 6.7 Power Stroke. Other than that,
Same clutches and all that then, in the torque converter.
I believe-
Stator, all that's the same.
I believe so. Yes,
Is there a difference between the diesel 10-speed and the gas 10-speed?
there is actually. There are some subtle differences between the diesel and the gas 10 speeds. Because the gas engines have lower torque, we do a couple of things. We drop a couple of clutches, so a couple of clutch plates. So I think there's 2 clutches where we drop 1 clutch plate each for gas, and then, for instance, on this part, this is actually a gas part because it's got 3 gears in it. On the diesel, we have 4 gears.
Oh, okay, extra
And,
planetary.
and then there's one other planetary set where we have an extra gear or 2 for the diesel as compared to the gas.
2 planet carriers have an extra gear.
Yes, essentially. And
that's
2
just
clutches
because
have an
of the
extra
torque?
plate. And that's because of torque. So it's really just torque carrying capability. Since the gas engine doesn't need it, we figured we wouldn't send those parts along for the ride just because they're adding cost and weight. So we took them out where we didn't need them.
Was there some collaboration with GM on these HDs as well?
It's a good question. So there was collaboration with GM on the F-150 10-speed, and we share the same architecture. But on the heavy duty, the decision was made to go separately. So Ford designed this one internally, and GM designed their version internally, but they're based on the same F-150, if you will, base
Foundation.
architecture, base common IP and common architecture.
And I think you said that the new gas engine is going to have best-in-class horsepower and torque, but we don't have those numbers yet.
Yeah, we're not announcing that yet.
Well, they gave us the gas one. They just didn't give us the
They
diesel.
announced gas today, but not diesel.
But not diesel. Okay.
Yeah.
But in both cases, they're going to be best-in-class?
I can't comment on the engine.
I forget which one. Okay, I thought.
So they did say that the 7.3 engine was best in class for whatever torque and horsepower, I think.
Okay.
Can you give some sort of indication of overall efficiency or through the road efficiency or anything, like versus the 6-speed? Something to just kind of rope it all in?
Not at this time, but I can say, I mentioned 4 or 5 things that we did to improve the efficiency.
Split PTO in particular.
Split shaft really, the purpose of the split shaft, if you're going to need more power than you're going to be able to get out of that PTO door, right? That's the base principle of it. A lot of the time it's just connected right at the back of the transmission that will go into the shaft. You can run multiple equipments off of that, but really the big thing with this, when you get the 10-speed in here, the 300-pound foot's really big. It gives you a little bit more space, I'll say, and a little bit more flexibility in terms of things like the pump that you're going to put on, in terms of the size of the upfit to some degree. The most important thing, though, is removing the PTO standard on the diesel chassis. When you've got the 10-speed and the 6.7, you're going to have a PTO standard. So if you think of, let's say you order a truck, and it's going to be a dump truck, and you forgot to put the PTO on, what is it? Basically a paper weight.
Right. Yours just has the plate, right? You still got to add the box.
Yep.
The PTO
so
box.
The actual the PTO itself,
right,
is still an aftermarket piece of equipment.
Okay.
But that window,
the plate, yeah,
that provision that we call it, is going to be standard.
Okay.
What sort of benefits does that provide?
Really, it's simplicity for a lot of fleets. There can be applications where, let's say, a truck goes through its first life, goes into a second life, goes into the used market. If it doesn't have a PTO, it limits what that truck can be in its second life. A lot of companies could potentially take a body off and shift it to a new truck. Keeping that PTO on there can have an impact on residual value. It opens up a couple more doors down the road, even outside of knowing that you've got PTO if you order a diesel chassis kit.
Does this truck have that split shaft on it?
This one does not have split shaft.
So there's nothing here to look at?
No, really, a split shaft is something the aftermarket would do.
Oh, so you have to come back from them.
It's basically, for us, think of it like programming.
So they got a shorter drive shaft, they can do the whole thing, different carrier bearings?
They'll put that piece in, they'll put the drive shaft in. For us, it's basically a programming.
They talked about that in TEA thing, but nobody knew what the hell it was when they was explaining it. I'm glad you do. That's good. That's good.
Or I just sound like I know what I'm talking about. Good at making
do a good job.
Definitely does, that's for sure.
Anything else of emphasis for upfitters?
Really, just on things like the F600, that's an exciting one. You're going to have more PTO capability, and you're going to have more weight capability, right? Going up to 22,000 pounds in this thing's going to make a big difference.
Break it into the cement mixer business, huh? Because there's not too many things that need that big a PTO, goodness gracious.
Yeah, you get up into the heavier trucks, and it's there's different requirements up there, so it's good. We've got a responsive transmission and engine team that take that end user into account.
So that means it's on the 650s and 750s then too, the split shaft PTO.
You can do split shaft on the diesel PTO.
That's where you probably need it more, yeah.
Who's most attracted to the 600? You guys
600, think of anything where you've got a truck that's going out, service body, just say for example, and you're trying to decide if you got to bring, am I going to be able to put the generator on? Am I going to be overweight? A lot of fleets are just going to say, I'm just going to be overweight today, and cross my fingers. This eliminates that. You also have, we were talking to a customer in Canada who, they go out in the morning, they could be at 19.5. They come back in the afternoon, and if you're out in, very muddy areas and it kicks up on the bottom, you're not at 19.5 anymore when you come back.
Right.
So you're building yourself a little bit of space. You're also giving yourself the opportunity to put potentially more equipment or a little bit of a heavier upfit on that.
Yeah, I know that was the theory, but that's also what you're hearing from the people that are actually using them.
The changes we make on these don't come without a long conversation with our upfitters, with our customers. That is where, I don't want to say all of our ideas come from, but we like to vet things a lot and make sure that they're going to work before we bring them to market.
Well, this is
for the customers.
This is your only medium-duty four-wheel drive, too, isn't it? You can't get it at 650 or 750?
Yeah, you can
so
do
if you got a full-drive,
aftermarket the 6.7, but this gets you up to 22,000 gas or diesel with 4x4.
Any of the new 10-speed stuff moving up to the 650?
Nothing I can announce at this time.
Well, they used to always have them on both sides. You're having both plates on both sides?
So we're still just the driver's side only.
So now you guys got a reason to just go push rod, huh? Is that what I said? A little tag there. Trying to talk us into push rods again. You guys even with the cams. I thought you guys would stay overhead cams forever. What is that?
For low RPM usage, The push rods bring a much more compact package. So whether you rev it fast or not, if you go overhead cam, you end up with a wider engine.
Okay.
And in these particular applications, just as we're talking about in the Dinosaur engines for the heavy vehicles,
right,
you really don't run beyond 4,000 RPM. And so the goodness that the overhead cam brings, you don't take advantage of it. And so when we looked at this engine architecture, since we're going from scratch, didn't matter if we went overhead cam or push rod, we solved what the customers want. And when we do that, we came to the conclusion the customers valued the smaller package more than they would high RPM usage that just doesn't happen in the commercial trucks.
Same way with direct injection. You didn't need that for...
We did some other things for fuel economy that nets us, the fuel economy that we wanted to hit for the government CO2 tests, and we managed to do it without DI.
So is port just cheaper? Is that another reason?
Our interest in the port was more from a service standpoint. If you think about our trucks, we sell a lot of them for very tough usage, off-road, mining, timber industry, agricultural, and so you're exposed to a lot of dirt. And in some cases, the trucks will never see a dealership after their initial delivery. They're out in the forest, and so we needed something that can be serviced very simply. So we had to do things like our variable displacement computer-controlled oil pump and such to get the fuel economy without having things that might be sensitive to what service is available in the field.
I thought just a fuel filter is a fuel filter and it works on your injectors.
Today, if you get dirt in your fuel tank with a PFI system and it gets by the filter, you may clog an injector. And you got a couple bolts here to pop the rail up, pop the injector out, pop it back in, you're back in business. If you pass dirt to a high pressure fuel pump, then you can take damage in the pump, you can spread debris throughout the fuel system. Much more complicated service.
So is this a pre-combustion chamber then, kind of thing, or?
No, gasoline engine.
They don't do that like it used to be.
And it runs a certain amount of open valve injection to actually get very close to direct injection for fuel efficiency.
Wow. Yeah, that'd be really nice to see with this new 10-speed what it does for fuel mileage. And I hope for at 355, I don't know if it's going to go 373, 430, some crazy number like that.
Well, it'll depend on the wheel and tire package that comes with it. But fundamentally, the thing that happens with the 10-speed that was touched on the presentation, it has 3 overdrive gears.
Right.
And you could ask yourself, well, what do I need 3 overdrive gears for? But think about it this way, depending on the load you have in the vehicle, if you're going into a headwind, going uphill, what are you doing? It has the ability to pick the tallest gear that the engine can propel the vehicle under those conditions. So instead of going from an overdrive, taking a big step back and giving up a bunch of fuel because of grades or loads, it can drop back just far enough. And so the 10-speed's going to really help us in real-world fuel economy.
Oh, I bet that should be a good thing. Well, that's too cool. When I guess you're never going to release numbers on the heavy Super Duties, but it'd be nice to know what these things will tow. You don't have any tow numbers, do you?
I don't know. Coming from the engine side,
don't you test them under a load on the trailer?
I've tested all the way up to and beyond the limits.
Well, there you go. So which one? What do you think it'll tow? 30,000 pounds or 28,000?
It'll end up depending on the vehicle and the configuration and sales and marketing.
And acceleration. Oh, they don't help anybody. Those guys don't tell you anything. You got to get from the truth from the engineers. They know what they're doing.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. So there.
Hello.
Greg, if that's your real name.
It is.
I saw you in Detroit in January. We did an interview. I'm wondering.
Eastern Market.
Yeah, with 10. Yeah, it was freezing cold. With that 10-speed, I know you got extra overdrives and all that, but also allows you to space all the gears differently, right? So it's kind of like a Peterbilt with 18 or whatever. You can just keeping the power, keeping it equal. Yeah, that same transmission thing, they did that to the last series on the diesel. The diesel and the gas had the same transmission except for those clutch packs. Then they came out with that stripped down one for the 6.2, whatever they called that. And I was upset with that because I liked having that extra heavy-duty transmission.
Right.
And so now I suppose they still have that transmission with the 6.2 if you don't get the 10-speed. Is it that same one they had?
That's the entry-level, same entry-level 6-speed is still available on F-250s.
I'm not happy about that, but that's just me. But I like that concept of being the same transmission. Well, that's good.